So this work analyzes the effect of exchange rate fluctuations and spikes in risk premia on export and output dynamics in emerging market economies. The motivation of these papers come from two pieces of evidence. From one side, recent survey evidence shows that most of the trade relationships, especially in international trade, are governed by long-term contracts, and most of these relationships are firm-to-firm and not firm-to-consumer. On the other side, there is ample empirical and anecdotal evidence that shows that usually the price in these transactions are set by bargaining. This is important because usually in our model we tend to model the relationship between firms and consumer international trade and start a demand and supply model. In fact, if you ask two firms which are the main reason why they don't want to change prices, most of them reply that they don't want to incur in further negotiation cost or that they fear to lose consumers. Perhaps surprisingly, all these two aspects, that is long-term business-to-business relationship and bargaining over prices and quantities, have been usually neglected from the international macroeconomic literature. Therefore, to fill this gap in this paper, what we do is we ask what is the role of long-term business-to-business relationship and bargaining for export dynamics and for output dynamics in emerging market economies. To this aim, we make two changes to a standard monopoly economy model. The first change is the assumption that in order to export, domestic firms need first to match with foreign importers. Second, once a trade relationship is formed, domestic exporter and foreign importer set the price and the quantities of the trade in a bilateral negotiation. These simple changes have an important effect on the aggregate dynamics of an emerging market. In particular, we highlight two main changes. First, we show that the repeated nature of the interaction between exporters and importers completely changed the effect of exchange rate fluctuations. That is to say, in this type of model, exchange rate fluctuation have a small effect on export dynamics. This is likely to have large policy implications, especially for countries that sometimes try to manipulate the exchange rate in order to boost export. Second, we show that this modification strongly improve the ability of the model to match the salient features of business cycles in emerging markets, and in particular the dynamics of exports following a large devaluation episode. Finally, we ask which are the effects of the export structure on the recessionary effects of large devaluation episodes. And in particular, what we look at are two parameters that capture different aspects of exporting firms. One of these aspects is their ability to rapidly adjust the production and distribution infrastructures in order to meet changes in international demand. And the other aspect is the bargaining power of exporting firms. And what we find is that both factors strongly influence the size of a recession. And in particular, we show that recessions are likely to be milder when countries can adjust more rapidly and more flexibly their production and distribution infrastructure following negative shocks, or when exporting firms have a larger bargaining power in the international market.